everyone, I am going to show you a little bit about our sewing machines. You can see that they are a Viking Husqvarna sewing machine. They have a lot of good features that we will be using. I'm going to go over just a brief overview of where the features are and which ones we will be using. The first thing I want to direct your attention to is on the side of the sewing machine, and it is the on-off switch. It controls the machine. It also turns the light on and off, and then there are two plugs, as you can see. The first plug that's closer to the switch controls the foot pedal, and the second one is the one that gets plugged into the outlet. The foot pedal will be on the floor. It looks like this. It should always be flat on the floor. You want to make sure that the cord's not twisted under it. And then again, when you press down on this, it will cause the feed system to move as well as the needle, which will enable the sewing machine to go. So, some parts I want to show you on the sewing machine. Once it's turned on, the light will turn on. When it's off, it looks like this. On, you can see that light is there. Here is the needle. That is what does the sewing. Your machine already is threaded, and you can see that the thread goes through the needle right there, and then is right here. There's also another thread, and that is your bobbin thread, and that one comes from the bottom of the machine. Here you have your presser foot. It is like a pair of skis almost, and that is what keeps the fabric pressed firmly against the fabric. There is a lever in the back of the machine. It's right here, and it goes up and down. And you can see as I move that lever up, the presser foot goes up. When I move it down, the presser foot goes down. Underneath the presser foot, there is the feed system, and that is it's kind of a grippy texture, and that's what grabs the fabric and moves it from the front to the back. So when you sew, you don't necessarily have to push the fabric through. You are more guiding it, and the feed system will push the fabric through. You can think of it like driving a car, because when you drive a car, you don't push it, you steer it. And that's what you're doing with the sewing machine, is you are steering the fabric through, and the sewing machine will do a lot of the pushing through. Here is the bobbin. That's that smaller spool of thread. You won't need to open that, but that's what it looks like. It's a smaller spool of thread. If it ever runs out, you won't sew, and I can pop in a new one for you. Over here we have a few, over here on the side above the, there's a good angle of it, above the on-off switch, we have the flywheel. This always gets turned towards you, and it is a manual way of moving the feed system that I just showed you, and it also raises and lowers the needle. So if you needed to get the needle in an up position or down, depending on what you were doing, without turning the machine on, you can just use the flywheel to turn it. Okay. Other things, there are the two knobs. The top knob controls the width of the stitch, so if you needed a zigzag stitch, we won't for our project, but if you did, that's what this one controls. And the bottom one controls the stitch length. I already have it set to the right stitch for you, so again, you don't need to touch this one at all for the stitch width. For the stitch length, you will need to touch it to go backwards. Going backwards with sewing is very important because it is how you lock in your stitches, and I'm going to demonstrate that in a few minutes. But you are going to go backwards every time you start and stop sewing. If you don't do that, it essentially, by backstitching, you are tying a knot just like you would if you were hand sewing, and if you don't do that, you can pull your stitches apart, which is not what you want to do. To backstitch, you just turn this to There's that little like U right there, looks like a reverse. And you just hold it while you're back stitching, and then as soon as you're done, you turn it back. Okay, so that's what you do for that. Other things you should know about: there is a handle on top of your machine. There is thread in your machine right here. This is already all set up for you. You don't need to do that. To thread the machine, if you had to, I will obviously help you, but you go through here, you follow these arrows that are kind of in the plastic going up and down, then you go around here, and you catch the thread on this hook, and then you go back down through here and to the needle. Threading the machine takes some practice, so that is why I'll have your already set up for you. You can also see there is a dial here as well as a dial here. Those control how fast the thread comes out of the machine. They are not something you need to touch. They are set up specifically for that machine, so I would not advise touching it because then it will mess up how your project comes out and you might have to resew it. So just leave those two knobs alone, this one and this one. They are the tension knobs and they control how fast the thread comes out of the machine. One other thing you should be aware of is this one right here, and that's how you get the thread on your bobbin. Again, that's already done for you, so it's not something you need to know, but it is just good to be aware of. Remember that the bobbin is that smaller spool of thread that sits inside the machine. Something else that I just like to point out is this back part comes off. In case you were sewing something with like a circle and you needed to go all the way around the machine, you can. But so if this ever comes off, I don't need you to worry. You did not break the machine. It comes off and then it just slides back in. So now I am going to show you how to sew and give you an idea. So I have a piece of scrap fabric here. I am going to start by putting it under the presser foot and then lowering that presser foot lever and putting it down. I'm going to line up. You have lines right here, so you know about where you should be, and you're going to try to keep your fabric even on that line so that you know you have an even stitch. When you are ready, you are going to gently press the presser foot, and you will start to slow at a nice speed. When you've gone for like about an inch and a half, you are going to use the reverse lever. Remember, that is this one right here. You are going to hold it so that it goes backwards. You will see that the fabric is now coming towards me. It's going backwards. And then when you're done, you'll put it back at 5, which is the stitch length, and then continue to go forwards. You will sew the whole length of what you're sewing, trying to keep it as even as you can right along this seam guide. When you get to the end, you're going to back stitch again. And go forwards, switch it back to forwards. And then you are going, my needle's up right now, but if it was down, it would look like this. And then you're going to lift it up always by turning that hand wheel towards you, lifting your presser foot. You're going to pull a little bit and then snip. And this is what your line of stitching should look like. It would be a small stitch, and then you can see right here where it's a little bit darker, that's where I went over it in the beginning, and then down here is where I went over it at the end. And that is how you sew. So please make sure you have reviewed this video and you are comfortable with it. If there's parts you still don't feel like you are familiar with, let me know. This one we're not going to touch at all. Same with this one and this one. This one you will only use to go backwards. This one you only turn towards you. That is the hand wheel. And this is the feed system with the presser foot, the needle, and then the feed system right here with the bobbin. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to let me know.